Skipping for height provides the athlete many repetitions of the takeoff and the coach a chance to address fundamental takeoff mechanics. Note the heel-to-toe action of the foot on each takeoff. Also notice that the swing leg is blocked below the hip and does not achieve a position parallel to the ground. This enhances the push-off from the ground by improving the timing between the takeoff leg extension and swinging movements. Skipping for distance is a variation of the previous exercise. Note the foot contacts and swing leg positions are the same as in the previous exercise. Also note that in both of these exercises, the athlete must take off and run in the air upon entering the sandpit. This might require slight lengthening or shortening near the end and is a good way to develop steering ability. The running in the air is an introductory way to improve the athlete's air-mindedness and comfort in flight. Run, run, jump is an exercise that consists of repetitive takeoffs. Note that the athlete here, who uses the right as a takeoff leg, takes off from every other right step. It is critical that the jumper be taught to land on the opposite foot after each takeoff, in this case the left. Run, run, jump provides an environment for teaching nearly any aspect of preparation and takeoff, and we will revisit it in detail when we discuss teaching progressions. Hurdle jumps provide similar teaching opportunities. The hurdles are spaced 7 to 9 feet apart, depending on the jumper's ability levels. The hurdles are not an obstacle, but a stride length regulator, so they should be set very low. The hurdles seen here are only 18 inches in height. Notice the foot contact patterns and swing leg blocking positions are the same as in the skip shown earlier. The jump should be vertical. Jumpers are often tempted to bend at the waist to set up hurdle clearance, but the coach must demand this not happen. This exercise is a great posture developer, demanding high hips and lower knees in this exercise is an important part of the process of teaching posture. We will use the run, run, jump exercise as a platform for the first part of our teaching progression. Using the same drill over the course of time, we will interject various technical features until all of the fundamentals have been taught and rehearsed. In the first step, emphasis is simply on achieving the correct step sequence. The athlete must be taught to jump off of the correct foot and land on the opposite foot. Intensity is not our goal, so speed should be very low. When the athlete has mastered the sequence of the run, run, jump, we move on. In the second step, the contact of the takeoff foot is addressed. The athlete is told to use heel-to-toe rolling actions of the foot against the surface on each takeoff. Once the jumper is taking off correctly, attention turns to the penultimate step. Penultimate mechanics are introduced by asking the athlete to use the same heel-to-toe rolling type contact, not only on the takeoff step, but on the step prior to it as well. Once the foot contact patterns for takeoff and penultimate have been learned, the jumper is taught to lower and displace. The lowering action at these low drill speeds is described to the athlete as a rotation of the shin, allowing the penultimate side knee to drop in front of that toe. This produces the desired forward and downward body path. This also places the penultimate side leg well behind the jumper, setting up a long arc through which the swing leg moves powerfully. Exaggerated lowering is not a worry at these low drill speeds, as the lowering becomes more subtle at the higher speeds of competition. The free leg action at takeoff is not addressed in this teaching progression because it occurs reflexively when the penultimate mechanics are taught in this way. Finally, arm actions are added. The jumper is told to bring the arm opposite the takeoff leg over and forward so that the hand passes at forehead height. In competitive long jumping, the hand does pass higher, but this movement is commensurate with the slower speeds of the drill, and range of motion naturally increases as speeds increase. It isn't necessary to address the other arm as it will soon move naturally in opposition. Now, all of the movements of preparation and takeoff have been taught, and it's time to move to starter long jump takeoffs. The jumper is placed on the runway at a location where a short approach will place the jumper close to the sandpit at takeoff. Jumpers whose approaches use an even number of steps should use 4 steps here, while jumpers who use an odd number of steps should use 5 steps. From this short run-up, the jumper is then told to execute the same preparation and takeoff done in the previous drill. The coach must insist upon replication. The board is ignored at this time, and the jumper must run in the air after takeoff as before. Once the jumper can take off from a run, short approach jumping is introduced. From 6 or 7 steps, the long jumper must perform the long jump takeoff as done previously. The athlete continues to run in the air after taking off. A competition style landing is not used. Running backwards from the board and having someone count steps and marking the step location that corresponds to takeoff is a quick way to assemble a short approach for practice. Outside of initial approach assembly, this is highly unadvised for the competition length run. With the basic skills taught, the coach's challenge is error correction. Over the course of time, the approach length chosen for this type of work should grow longer, increasing velocities while the coach assists the athlete to replicate the preparation and takeoff at the higher speeds. This lengthening should continue until short approach length work reaches 12 or 13 steps. This length of approach produces velocities close enough to those experienced in competition to enable the technique to remain stable in competition. Once the competitive season has begun, meet simulation is no longer a concern, so the run should shorten again to 8 or 9 steps. Once this short run jumping is begun, it should continue to be done once or twice a week for the remainder of the season. At some point after beginning short run approach work, the competition style landing should be added. Because the landing can be a great distraction for a developing jumper, its inclusion is postponed until preparation and takeoff techniques are well drilled and stable. It's not unusual for a coach to have an athlete work only on takeoff for weeks before including the landing. Landings prior to this point should be practiced in some other activity. Once landings are permitted, the jumper's focus must remain on the preparation and takeoff, and the jumper must trust in their ability to get into landing positions. Even in late season, it's typical to include some jumps without landings in the practice. Eliminating the landing in practice can also be a way to minimize wear and tear on the jumper's body at times. We have not mentioned the teaching of flight mechanics. We have actually been teaching flight mechanics all along, as the teaching has been embedded in the previous drills. We began by demanding the jumper run in the air at the end of fundamental drills, introducing flight mechanics in a very basic way. The key component of flight mechanics is the extension of the free leg in flight. By demanding that the jumper land on the opposite leg in the run-run-jump drills and hurdle jumps, many repetitions of the free leg extension are done, and the athlete can readily perform it in flight.